My freshman year of college was one of the funnest years of my life, and some of my fondest memories are from that year. But it was also the scariest and strangest year to date. I'm 31 now. This is thanks to one story in particular. There are actually a couple more that I might post some other time that takes place over the entire school year. I still sometimes wonder how this really happened and I didn't end up a shut-in nut job, and it still freaks me out to this day. I've only talked about it once or twice since it happened 13 years ago. August 2001, like most freshmen, I live in the dorms at the state party school. I opted out of the good school I got into. I guess I had a little steam to blow off after graduating from a military/college prep boarding school. Plus, after a sports injury, I didn't exactly have any specific plan for life that went past Saturday night, if you know what I mean. A good buddy from military school, Bill, went to the same college and lived a few floors below in the same dorm as me. So of course we were getting the party started before my parents' exhaust fumes had even evaporated from the parking lot. For the most part, the first month or so of college was pretty much like that, normal. I went to most of my classes, partied just about every night, chased girls around, and that was enough for the moment. But things began to change one night, sometime in mid-December, and college for me would never be normal again. My dorm phone, landline, only Sackmores carried a cell phone in 2001, get over it, rings in the middle of the night. Hello? On the other end, I can only really describe the voice as the kind you picture when you think about a computer talking, kinda like the early model car GPSs. Hi, Gary. How are you today? Not fully awake, I'm just confused at this point. Who is this? He repeats. Hi, Gary. How are you today? It becomes pretty clear I'm being effed with, so I hang up and chuckle. Effin' Bill, nice one. I pass back out. I end up forgetting about the call for a few days and never mention it to Bill or anyone else. About a week later, I get another call around the same time of night. Hi, Gary. I'm watching you. Nice, very cliche. Seriously, Bill, how are you not knee-deep in Everclear or a Tri-Delta at this hour? Enough already, Kate is going to start getting pissed. I hang up. I casually confront my oh-so-clever amigo at breakfast the next morning, purposely not trying to bite too hard to give him a payoff that might incentivize continued calls. I also wasn't 100% sure it was actually him, and not another one of my douchebag friends. He gives a genuinely confused response. Whatever. So a couple of days after the second call, I come home and see I had multiple messages on my answering machine. What the f? I barely even knew that thing worked. It's computer voice guy, or in the following CVG. Message 1. My machine cuts off after the first 1 to 2 seconds of the message, which tells me it's a bot set to play a message upon answering. Hi, Gary. I am watching you. Message 2. I thought I asked you to answer my calls, Gary. Message 3. Where might Gary be on Tuesday night? Okay, so one of my friends is clearly a-hole or bored enough to really push for a reaction here. The next day, I play the messages from my roommate Cade, who was around during the calls, which were apparently earlier in the night when he was still awake. He'd been a close buddy since we were in junior high, but we'd sorta taken separate paths after high school. So anyway, he's where I'm a wild child, and thinks nothing of the first couple of messages. But the third, he's a little spooked. I then walk down to a couple of other buddies' rooms and casually but immediately bring up the subject. Nada. Over the next couple of days, I press all close and semi-close friends but get 0 answers and 0 suspects. The calls start coming more frequently over the next couple of months, starting at once a week, then to once every 2 to 3 days, up to every day by Christmas break. I didn't say anything to my family at that point, although I really should have. What started out as a decent beginning of college turned into not showing up for any classes, tests, nothing. That started to show in my grades, and I'm too busy answering for a .67 GPA to talk about some dumb prank that would likely be dismissed as a pathetic attempt to explaining my grades. So it goes. Uneventful break, and back to school, determined to become a new man. I gotta get my shit together with these grades, so I tell Bill I'm gonna have to chill out and focus on school. First night back, I get my first spring semester call from CVG. How is your family in Cyprus? Hometown suburb. Okay, now this is freaking bullshit, man. What kind of douche lords am I hanging out with that even have the discipline to drag out a prank like this? I get the answer to that question a few days later, and the answer is none of them. Calls become threatening and downright dark. I am very interested, Gary, in becoming close to you. Yeah, with kind of a weird sentence structure like that. I have tools I can bring. It is going to be all over soon. I decided I had enough, and I brought Bill and all of my other buddies up to hear the messages. Never deleted a single one for some reason. I guess when things happen over longer periods of time, you don't really feel the cumulative impact until laying out the complete package of evidence. The guys are in shock. I guess I should mention that some of the calls got really specific in making sure to note specific details about my parents' addresses, as well as the violence they were planning on doing to me. Cut open your esophagus, Gary, with a butter knife, and all sorts of other crap that is sort of blurred together through the hundreds upon hundreds of calls I got over the school year. A chick friend of mine that I'd really liked in high school, named Lila, goes to a different school hundreds of miles away. We've reconnected thanks to good old AIM, and talked from time to time on the phone. CVG had mentioned a couple of times your friend and made threats about this unspecified person from time to time, but your friend turned into your friend Lila. Lila and I are the only two people ever named in these calls, but it get me wondering if this was a new lead to the source. Lila is clueless when I call her about it. Awesome. I know that background was long to read, but you'll understand why I had to explain the situation when I tell you about what happens next. One night, we're all partying and drinking at some hotel. I forgot to mention that all that straight A crap went out the window as these events progressed. A different buddy, Carl, has a nice big truck we'd all go everywhere in, but he passed out drunk at the hotel after pounding an entire bottle of whatever I'm not really drinking tonight and want to get back to my own bed. I snatched Carl's keys to drive back to campus, thinking I'll drive back in the morning to get everyone. This was one of the few times I'd ever driven that year, so I wasn't tip-top on my directions. I make an early turn and I'm somehow down a road I've never seen. I realized this pretty quick, but I figure I've got the general direction of campus pegged, so I can just continue the wrong road until hitting the familiar highway that I knew I'd eventually have to hit that is close to campus. I'm finding myself in open fields, still a paved road and everything, but aside from the road there was absolutely nothing, and it was completely dark. Around 3 AM, there's this really strange four-way stop I came upon. Strange because I'm probably the fourth person in a year to drive on that road. Unnecessary? Anyway, I trudge along, eventually get to the familiar highway and home free. A few days later, CVG interrupts his usual depraved threatening to mention that specific four-way, day and time that I was on it, which like I said was around 3 AM, and there wasn't a soul in sight. So yeah, I now realize CVG is obviously tracking my movements somehow. Note, I later joined the military, worked in the intelligence community, and worked special operations and tracked bad guys all around the world. To this day, I still can't figure out how this dude knew I was in the middle of those fields on that date in the middle of the night. I never mentioned it to anyone else. Around March, this apparent rendezvous became CVG's focal point, and he made sure to let me know the day was close. The calls were coming in no fewer than 10 or 15 every single day. Seriously, the ringer was now off out of courtesy to Cade, and I turned down the volume of the answering machine as his phone call is recorded, but I finally get the message I've been waiting for. Keep in mind, I've now become somewhat famous or infamous at this university by now because of the CVG. People were constantly knocking on my door, wanting to hear the messages. Friend of a friend or whomever I know. It was all people wanted to hear about at parties. Blah blah blah. For a split second it was cool because I'm pretty sure I ended up getting a few dates indirectly from my introductions conceived through the interest in the guy with a stalker. Don't judge me. Moving right along, the date, time, locations are set. We will meet in front of Coleman Hall at midnight Wednesday 27 April, and we will take our friendship to the next level. I know what you're thinking, and yeah, throughout the year I had considered the possibility that I was dealing with a female. Hell, I have no fury like a woman scorn, and I was definitely that kind of dude when I was 18 or 19 years old, the kind that could attract clinginess and anger. But I started to rule out female for various reasons that only a fellow ENFJ would understand. Look it up if you're not tracking. I can build profiles with a very high ratio of accuracy to available information. This creep just didn't feel like a female to me. It didn't even feel like a peer. I was convinced I was dealing with a mid-30s white male computer nerd that I'd come into contact with at some point in my life. Doesn't really matter because what I ended up finding out on Wednesday 27th of April, which by the way was Lila's birthday. Interesting. I was wrong. Of course, everyone wants to be a part of this juicy story, and there is a pretty ridiculous amount of testosterone floating around at the dorm on game day. This was a real-life creepster, and a legit horror story unfolding before the very eyes, and groupthink will subvert caution if properly motivated. These guys are ready to defend me with their lives, just ask them. So, while these monkeys are getting all hopped up on Mountain Dew, I stay at home that afternoon, wondering what the I was going to do at midnight. Of course, I was going to go, but dude. Yeah, I've always been an athlete, in good shape, wrestling, football, / baseball teams, yada yada. But I'm still a 19-year-old white male, good parents, grew up middle upper class white suburbia, had a good life. In other words, I can definitely hold my own in a street fight. But this, whatever this is, doesn't feel anything like a street fight, or any other kind of fight I've been in. This is a disturbed, violent, angry, possibly grown-ass psychopath that has decided to dedicate almost a full year now of his life to targeting and terrorizing me. So yeah, I'm a little frickin' nervous. My home team crowd steadily built up throughout the afternoon and evening, with probably close to 70 or 80 guys grouped up at our dorm's common area. We were connected to the female dorm at the first floor, smoking cigarettes and talking about beating the out of people and getting fucked up and all the other generic cliche shit you can imagine. Once the party hour approaches though, over half of the guys splinter off into other various propositions that probably included more traditional fun, like beer pong and sorority girls. I'm left with a 15 to 20 member platoon. I had decided earlier that I was not going to allow all these knuckleheads to shadow me, but I could definitely use them in case of emergency. I didn't want to risk him spooking out of the meet, so I let them know that they will need to stay inside the doors of the common area while I walk out to the meeting spot. Coleman Hall was adjacent to our connected girls' dorm, and about 300 paces outside door to get to Coleman. The witching hour came, so I leave the crew to begin the longest couple hundreds or so paces of my life. My boys can see me through the glass doors, but wouldn't really be able to see me once I get to the Coleman Hall. About 100 paces out from my spot, I observed two things at the same time. One, some kind of small, quick movement in front of the patio walkway that goes all the way around the building. And two, the movement was in a spot along the walkway where the only normally uber bright bulb was out. I'm not exactly sure how I was able to see him, but I suddenly realized someone is crouched behind one of the contiguous cookie cutter bushes outside of the patio perimeter, against one of the building pillars. In dark clothes and a hoodie, he is a few feet away from the path where I'm supposed to meet him, and positioned to where I really should not have been able to see him. Given the pillar blocking any shadow, plus the burnt out, I later found out smashed light. In fact, I could have easily walked all the way to the door without ever having noticed someone down there. And nope, I sort of jump mid-step as this happens, and I see him raise up a little thinking I might have seen him. I see him raise up and take a step towards me, and fight or flight hits. I've learned that my particular fight or flight chooses fight in more mild situations, flight during intense situations, but for shit your pants situations it's scary to run away with your back to whatever scary shit I'm dealing with. So I fight. Before I realize what I'm doing, I'm in a dead sprint towards this motherflower, who I'm guessing sees what I can't yet, which is my platoon busting through the glass doors in hot pursuit. Creepster nopes the f out of here, running out on the patio alongside Coleman Hall towards the parking lot. I can tell this isn't the mid-30s computer nerd I predicted. Creepster is above average height, above average broad, and built athletically. That's all I could tell really. I'm not even sure if he was white, because it was at least tan if not Hispanic, Middle Eastern, etc. I'm really booking it as he right turns on a dime at the edge of the building. I realize I'm moving fast enough to catch him, but everyone else is really far behind. I also realize I'm moving so fast I won't be protected as I had turned right on the corner of the building. If he stops there, I'm toast. As I turn the corner, I see the van sitting alone in the parking lot in front of me. Its running and brake lights flicker on then off, park into drive, and begins inching forwards towards the exit. Homeslice is of course heading for the van, which for some reason sends this whole level of fear into me. This is it, this is really happening, and I'm going to get frickin' murdered tonight. But I can't stop, as something keeps me moving forward. I guess I come this far and dealt with this crazy bullshit for almost a year now, completely unable to do anything other than try to ignore it. I'm not exactly going places academically at this point. My life doesn't quite have all that much purpose to it yet. If I'm going to get schwacked, I will at least know, and this crap will be at least over. Plus, I still have a chance to catch this madman before he gets away. If I could get close enough to dive tackle, I would still be on my own to deal with this creepster, his driver, and now I realize there's a third person that was manning the sliding door. Awesome. I don't care how badass you think you are, when you're a 19-year-old jock, your chances of taking down 3 grown men that are already violent criminals and prepared to victimize are about 1 and not gonna fucking happen, buddy. My turn is wide and slow due to being full on sprint, and I lose ground. I'm probably 20 yards from the lot when he does a flying leap into the side of the van. There couldn't have been any rows or seats for a leap like that. Creepster number 3 slams the sliding door shut as the van peels out the parking lot, bangs a right, and is gone in an instant. The relief of not being kidnapped, bound and gagged in that van with 3 psychos who most likely had some pretty horrific plans for me is now just as strong as the dread of the fact that this is still not over with. I was speechless, and so was my platoon as they catch up a minute later. A few of them caught up enough to witness the parking lot scene, but no one was talking. Testosterone has now been replaced with genuine and earnest concern. They all just stood there with me, catching their breath and making sure I was alright. One guy asked if anyone got a plate number, but not even I did. Not enough light. We finally started walking back, and I'm reliving the scene as we retrace our steps. As we get closer to the original meeting spot, I see something that scares me more than anything else in the entire equation has up to this point. On the opposite side of the pillar, where Creepy McCreeperson was crouching, there is a video camera sitting on a stand pointed right at the spot I would have been standing at when I should have not been able to notice him. And it's still recording.